meeting of April the 14th to order. At this time, I think we have a pledge.
Dylan's back there.
Got somebody, okay, let's say the pledge is leading. We got a class that's going to lead us here.
Goodness, that was fast.
Well, they fast. Hope they play baseball that good.
That was fast.
All right. All right, at this time, I'll ask Mr. Baltnight to lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. God, you're amazing. We love you. We thank you, God, for being so good to us here at District 3. We ask for your wisdom, understanding, knowledge. God, help us to apply that here to this district, to these kids. God, help us move the way that you would have us move for these administration, the teachers. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right, this time we need approval for the agenda. I understand we have some amendment.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we need to move item E under reports, the Crescent High School 2024 report card, move that to after citizens' comments. And then also under action items, number 7, if we can move item B, and that should not say policy, that is an administrative rule, and that was my mistake in putting this in. Move the administrative rule discussion under the report section, number 6, so that it's not an action item, it's a discussion item.
Okay. All right, you've heard the amendments. I'll seek approval.
I make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
Have a second. All in favor? 5-0. All righty. About the minutes, have y'all had time to go through the minutes from last meeting? Need any changes or additions? Hearing none, I'll ask for approval.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes.
Have approval? I mean, on motion,
Case second.
and a second. All in favor? 5-0. All right, accommodations. Right along.
I'd like to thank you all for coming out tonight. And it's always wonderful to have a group of parents and our students here with us, and so we want to recognize some great accomplishments. And first of all, Mr. Watt, why don't you come over to this side? Okay, first of all, we have Emma Grace Vernon, so I will ask her to come up because she actually has 2 certificates here. And so Emma Grace, first of all, she is being recognized Jostens Class of 2026 Graphic Design Contest winner. Must get that from her mother. And then South Carolina Association of Title I Administrators 2025 Scholarship Selection Region 3. And of course, that's money. So congratulations, Emma Grace. Next, we have a couple of Beta Club awards. So, Ms. Holbrook, if you will come up with us while we recognize these 2, because you have done a phenomenal job with Beta Club for so many years and helped us to be a district of distinction when it comes to Beta Club. So we have Jalen Parker, first place pottery at the 2025 South Carolina Beta Club Convention. Okay, if you'll stay. And then we have Lily Cook. Lily is elected as the South Carolina Beta Club Secretary at the 2025 South Carolina Beta Club Conventions. Congratulations. let you come read these now, since you're the secretary, right? Okay, now we have two elementary groups to recognize from our robotics qualifiers. So first of all, we have the 2025 Lego Robotics State Qualifier, and we have Paisley Hatcher. Valerie Castanon. Eden McCall. And Draven Moore. Okay, and I think this group is from Star Elementary. So if your sponsors or coaches would come up. There's more? Okay, sorry.
The ones you signed.
It got put in the wrong stack. I apologize. I thought I had missed somebody. So we have Sophie McAllister, 2025 Lego Robotics State Qualifier. Sophie, I was going to put you at Flat Rock. You may not want me to do that. And then Luke Eubanks. All I need to do is look at the TigerBot shirts, and it would have. Okay, now if my sponsors will come up. All right, now my Flat Rock group, which are the VEX Robotics State Qualifiers. Emma Grace Jimenez. Lillian Phipps. Emma Silvers. Jace Kyle. Okay, well, congratulations to Flat Rock. I have my Flat Rock sponsors here. Okay, well, Candace, thank you for being here tonight. Okay, and then we have one other special award. This award comes with a gift certificate from Amazon, and this is our District 2025 Anderson 3 Spelling Bee Champion, Eli Campbell. Eli? Okay, we're going to share Eli's gift certificate then. Just kidding, we will get that to Eli. Thank you all for coming and for doing such a great job representing Anderson School District 3. We are so proud of you. You are why we do what we do every day. So thank you, students and parents. At this time, you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but if you would like to exit at this time, that's okay too. Thank you so much. Sure. There's no citizens' comments, so we're
Citizens' comments?
good there.
All right. Congratulations to all the participants. All right, this time, we're gonna call Matthew Moore for,
This Crescent.
huh?
Crescent.
Oh, they gonna do their thing, all right.
Right, yes.
I had them below citizens' comments, I'm sorry. Go ahead, brother.
Good?
Yeah, we good. We're gonna get everything going here in a minute.
Show me what to press. Down, okay. We'll give it a shot anyway. Again, what a great time to be a Tiger, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about our school and highlight our faculty, our students, and our community. It's been a banner year for Crescent High School, and we are so excited to share with you some of the details of that. All the great things going on. I was sitting here thinking, you know, Lily, the young lady that just was elected for Beta Club office, was also elected the state secretary for student government a couple of weeks later. We've got so many good things going on. We just had a teacher selected as the Johnston upper statewide difference maker of the year. Just so many good things that we're going to be announcing that we have coming up. We have awards night or awards day next Friday morning. Love for you guys to make it if you can. We've got a wonderful senior class that we're going to be honoring. But I've kind of set up tonight's presentation with the fantastic help of Ms. Taylor to where we're going to start academically with our report card and then go through some of the other data. And then we'll have an opportunity at the end for any questions. Feel free. Our team is here, and we've got a lot of good things to share. So first, of course, with the report card, Dylan Down didn't do it. There we go. All right. So, yes, as you know, we were excellent this year. Our school report card, and I think I've shared with you in years past, that report card and I have a love-hate relationship because of how that thing's calculated. But we were able to secure excellent this year, and if we go to the next slide, I'll kind of walk you through how we achieved that. With academic achievement, our rating was good, and we received 16.06 points out of 25, and that was the algebra and English scores. With preparing for success, that 10 points, we received 5.03. Multilingual learners, I'll come back to that. We did not have a subgroup, so I'll come back to that in just a moment. Grad rate, we were excellent in. We got 17, and a little over 17 and a half for the 19 points. College and career readiness, we were excellent. We received 16.81 out of the 19 points. High school student success rate, which is new, and we'll talk about that a little more in just a moment. Out of 12 points, we got 10.41. When they initially released that, we were excellent. Then it switched to good about a week later. And Ms. Taylor, what is it, 10.6 we looked at that you had to have to be excellent. So that actually dropped us from Palmetto Gold to Palmetto Silver according to the report card stuff. But we were very proud of that in the first year of measuring student success rate. In our school climate surveys, we received 4.12 out of 5 points. If you look specifically within those sections at our academic achievement, our Algebra 1 EOCs, we had a pass rate of 90.7. And for those of you that have been around education for a while, we call that a unicorn. Getting 90% in Algebra 1 is something I never thought that I would see. And I couldn't be more proud of our teachers, the work they put in, the intensive reviews, the curriculum planning, and the intentional work that went into achieving that pass rate. You see the 63.2, that was our percent of C and above, and that's what actually factors into the report card rating for academic achievement. If you look, we were number 12 out of the top 15 performing high schools in Algebra 1. And this ranking is based on, you take those top 15 schools and rank based on poverty index. There were 3 schools that had a higher pass rate than us in the entire state. like to mention that of those three schools, you see things like charter and early college. So, and I guess the best way to put that is they don't look like us, and we're very proud of what we're able to do with our students in our community school. All right. With English 2 EOC, you see 94.4% pass rate. Again, I couldn't be more proud of that group. We, about 5 years ago, we implemented a literacy initiative that focused real heavily on reading comprehension and writing skills. And I kind of attribute some of the things that we've done across the curriculum to getting to where we are with our English scores. And as we all know, the foundation for any student achievement and any assessment is being able to read, write, and comprehend. So we made that a focus, and we're seeing a lot of things pay off. And for the C and above in English 2, we were actually 83.1%. If you look at the English 2 EOC pass rate, we were number 29 in the state. And again, this chart takes the poverty index. If you look at the poverty index, there were only 2 schools out of those 30 that had a higher poverty index than us that were in the top 30 schools in the state. So again, something to be very, very proud of for our teachers and our students and the work that went into that. With our EOCs, not only do we do some different things with scheduling as far as our hybrid scheduling and double blocking courses, but we also have intensive reviews each year leading into those assessments. And all of those things have just really begun to pay off for us in these areas. So again, just a lot to hang our hat on with EOC scores this year. Superintendent Weaver started a 75% club at the state level, and Ms. Hipp relayed the information that we were a part of that club, and given our almost 70% poverty index, we were very proud to be a part of that club. So that was a new thing this year, and we made that club due to our English 2 scores. And when you switch over to preparing for success, this goes to the biology and the U.S. history. Our biology pass rate was 77.5, and our C and above was 59. That 77.5, when you look at those math and English scores that we're able to produce, you're like, oh, that seems a little lower. Well, in all of Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens, which is full of great schools across those 3 districts, that's the number 2 score in all of the AOP. So you have to look at these tests individually because of how they're structured, new standards. Sometimes you have new tests. But we were very proud of our biology folks for having the 2nd highest pass rate in all of Anderson, Oconee, and Pickens. Moving through to U.S. history, we were up in U.S. history for pass rate, down like a 10th in C and above. The U.S. history assessment has been one that has kind of plagued high schools since it come to be, as far as it is probably the most difficult test we have. They actually implemented new standards recently, and this was the first scores we had with the new test. So if you look at these scores, they're not where we would say we want to be, but when you start comparing it to the rest of the state, we actually were in pretty good company. So we'll look at that a little more closely when we start looking at some comparative data in just a little bit. Grad rate was 91.7%. I think this was year 8 consecutively of being excellent and over 90% in grad rate. So very proud of that and being able to maintain that with our students. That is a big calling card for us at Crescent High. College and career readiness, we're on our 3rd consecutive year of excellent in this category. And Ms. Taylor and our guidance folks work extremely hard making sure that we meet this criteria. It starts with our WIN assessment and the scores from that test, and then we move on to some different things, some ASVAB tests, some other ways we're able to close that gap to get to where we need to be with college and career readiness. High school student success, that percentage of the report card was brand new this year. And this year, what counted in that was your first year on track to graduate and your 5th year student success rate. So in order to be on track as a first year, you had to have earned 6 credits, 1 being in English, 1 being in math. Next year, they will add first and second year as well as keep the 5th year success rate, and that will go into that percentage. We've had numerous discussions with the State Department of, all right, if a kid didn't make it in that 9th grade year, do they catch up? Do you get those points back? We're still looking for answers with some of that, but we're trying to do our very best to stay on top, because the percentages of your report card that have gone into this category come from the 2 areas that we're excellent in. So we want to make sure that we are able to maintain the success that we've been having by performing well in this area too. If you look at the first year on track, the state performed at 84%. We were at 89.1. And if you look at the 5th year, the state performed at 85, and we were at 91.1. So above the state in both of those areas, and still looking for a chance to continue to improve that. With ACT, we were at 21.8, which it was brought to my attention that that's the 2nd highest composite score that we've had at Crescent, so we're very proud of that. Ms. Pinson does an excellent job with the test prep section during our enrichment time and power hour, so we're very proud of the work she's doing with our students there. You look at our dual enrollment numbers over the last 4 years, we've increased 60, almost 70 dual enrollment courses, and I think it was 99% C or better is what I read somewhere. So not only are our kids taking more, but they're being very, very successful as a part of our dual enrollment program with Tri-County Tech. This year, we're in the top 27% of all high schools nationwide. That's up about 10% from the previous year. It's our 2nd consecutive year being a U.S. News Best High School. We were very proud of making that 10% jump, and, you know, hopefully, if we can overcome hurricanes and snowstorms, we can see an increase in that again this year. If you look at all of the Anderson, Oconee, Pickett schools, we ranked the highest on School Digger when you look at all EOC scores. And you can go, if you see a column that's highlighted in yellow, that would be any school in that column that was higher than us. So you see, we were the highest in algebra. Wren was slightly higher than us in biology pass rate. Daniel was slightly higher than us in English. There were 5 schools higher than us in U.S. history, and only 1 school in the entire AOP that has a higher poverty index. So when we look at this kind of data and we talk to our students and our teachers about this, is we say, guys, we're outliers, and that's something we should be very proud of. We talk all the time about not letting our challenges define our outcomes, and that's something that everybody's really bought into and allowed us to have this level of success. So we're very proud of those scores. If you look at the top 30 schools, we were number 29, and all overall, and if you pull the poverty index, there's 1 school that was higher. So, and that was HCS Early College High. Apparently that's at the beach.
Yeah.
We're very proud of where we fall on that list, especially amongst traditional high schools. Now, these slides are just some pictures. I've talked to you a lot about academics and the report card. We threw some slides. A lot of these are off of my phone. I have it on good authority that Ms. Black and I actually got some votes, some write-in votes during the election. But, you know, we've got wonderful programs that support our academic program at Crescent High. we would be here all night if I tried to talk about all of them, from FFA, award-winning cattle show team, fine arts. Our band is excelling, doing things they've never done. I think we were third in the state this year, highest ever. We've got, I think we sent a kid to Dallas for the national chorus thing this year. I mean, things that we just don't normally see, I hate naming certain things because I'm afraid I'll miss somebody, but just so much to be proud of. And we appreciate your support making that happen. I just wanted to put some visual things because, I believe firmly that when you build the culture that you want to have in a school or any organization, the student outcomes and the success follow having that culture in place. And I really feel like that is something we have in place. That's FCS pond, football kids make meals, homecoming queen, our lunch ladies being great during the storm. I mean, you name it. There's so many things like this. I mean, we're working on the square body and the ag arena. There's Michelle and Brandon. I'm pretty sure Brandon had just fired her before we took it there. And when you are the one doing the presentation, you get to put you and your son hugging at graduation. But again, I want to say thank you for the opportunity to be a small part of leading this school. It's a special place, and I've been in other districts. I'm getting old now, so I've been in 2 other districts, and we've got things here that other places don't have, and I really appreciate the opportunity to be a part of that. I've talked a lot. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I couldn't do any of the stuff that I do, and we definitely couldn't achieve what we achieved at our school without my team. A lot of them are here today. Coach Kraft's at a ball game. But I would like to open it up for any questions you guys have for me or our team at this time.
Don't have any questions, just great job. I mean, those scores are phenomenal, and there's a lot of hard work that goes into there, and that's just, something to be very, very proud of. So please express that to the teachers, that we do recognize that, too.
Well, Miss Owen was the one that kind of keeps us in the check, other than Miss Hip, when it comes to these test scores. And when they bragging, we know we're doing good. So
Watch the scores.
very, very proud of what y'all doing. Each one of you.
Thank you all. We appreciate it.
Great job.
All right, now at this time, Mr. Moore.
See if I can swing this around a little bit. This?
I would say yes. No.
We insisted that he go to the ball game, so, yeah.
Fine, it's baseball.
If you're going to Walhalla, then we'll insist you go too. Okay.
All right, so we'll get us started taking a look at our general fund through the end of March. Through the end of March, our revenues have exceeded our expenditures by $2,659,050. It's a really good spot to be in this point in the year. Pretty happy about where we stand, and when you look at prior years, it's a very consistent spot that we've been in, and of course, we've had very solid years the past few years. We do have one timing difference. As you'll notice, last year we're about $800,000 ahead, and we've been lagging behind by about a couple of $100,000 consistently from last year. But we did have a timing difference in our manufacturer's depreciation reimbursement that comes from the county treasurer's office. So that's $524,000 that we had received in March of last year that we have not yet received. I do hope we get that the next couple of days with our mid-month allocation that we received. So I would anticipate that being called up on next month's report. really, revenues are coming in as expected, like we'd anticipate them being throughout in the year. I did mention last month about the insurance proceeds related to Hurricane Helene. Those did come in. Got those categorized under our other local revenue there. That was $77,685.45. So we do have most of those costs wrapped up. We do have some roofing costs that'll show up next month. But for the most part, we got most of those repair costs included in the general fund here, of course, being offset by the income revenue. Last thing revenue related really is the update on our enrollment numbers, our 135th day. We got those numbers certified today. We ended up the year with an ADM, an average daily membership of 2,642.92. And for a point of reference, our 45-day numbers were at 2,663. So did come down a little bit from the 45-day numbers, but still 65 ahead of where we were at the 135th day last year. So still saw some growth, but it did get tempered down a little bit from the 45th day. Weighted pupil units, which is the factor that drives that state aid to classroom calculation, did come down by 35.61. So we've talked about our 45-day numbers and the dollar impact from that state aid to classrooms number. Had us looking like we were going to finish $730,000 above budget, has now come down to about $580. So about $150,000 swing downwards from that enrollment decline. But the thing, we don't have the state's numbers yet. So that's the other piece of it, is our share of the whole pie. So we don't have the state numbers yet. Once those get finalized, we'll know exactly how we'll finish out. But in a vacuum, just our numbers changing, this about $150,000 impact. Still good news, just not as good, I guess, as it was at the 45-day. On the expenditure side of things, everything appears to be on schedule. The main differences that ones we've talked about month after month with purchase services, that instructional software, paying for that out of general fund when those have been paid out of ESSER in the past. We had some contracted mental health counselors paid out of ESSER as those funds expired. And then also those insurance repairs, a lot of those are going to fall under purchase service, so a little higher than what they've been in the past, just for those things. Other than that, general funds looking like we'd like it to look at this time of the year. Property taxes caught up pretty close to where we were last year in terms of overall percentages. We exceeded our current revenue, a real property, if you will, for property taxes. So that came in good, and that kind of justifies those that value of mill increase that we've been seeing on those assessment reports and that we've been using for our budget as well. So feel good about the property tax piece in the general fund as well. With that, are there any general fund related questions? None? All right. So moving on to the sales tax. I know it's getting smaller with every collection we get, it seems like, on the screen. So in the month of March, $262,810.69 was allocated to Anderson 3 as part of the sales tax collection. We did expect it to come down from our record collection in February, and it did, but it's still in that range where we were looking at to be, just a tick above where it was last year, around 245,000. So still doing well, still slightly exceeding prior year's numbers. So we feel good about that. We're still on track to outpace our year last year, annualizing what we collected so far, still about 5 or 6% ahead of last year. So feel good about that sales tax coming in. So, and of course, of that collection, $52,562 goes directly to servicing our debt and keeping that millage down and consistent. And then the other $210,000 is available for capital use. Any sales tax related questions? Good. All right. Some fun stuff. All right, so our budget update, kind of want to start off saying that a lot of this is built off of the House version of the state's budget. The Senate Finance did meet this past week, and really thankfully, a lot of it was very similar to what the House had, at least as it pertains to education. They did mirror the House's version of the minimum teacher salary, of increasing it by $1,500, and they did also collapse that bachelor's plus 18 schedule, but we are planning on maintaining that schedule here locally. This is kind of that familiar sheet that we give you with the general fund financial report, just to kind of show you what the prior year's budget compared to what we're looking at as of today, as we move forward. This proposed budget at this point is a total of $31,940,650, an increase of $1,832,900, or 6.09%. So with that, a lot of the key drivers behind this, at least on the expense side, first thing we've already talked about is annualizing that big health insurance increase we had that went into effect in 2025 back in January. So just getting the remaining months of those of that cost annualized and updating those actual rates drives this, providing a step increase for all of our employees, and then also a 3% increase is what we're proposing right now for all staff. I've got attachments I've got the visuals of those attachments here in a second. I'll talk those a little bit more in a second. We want to extend our support staff salary schedules all to 28 steps. I'll touch on that here in a moment. And then some substitute pay increases, updating to the actual usage we've seen, and also in some of the studies we've done, looking like we may need to up some rates there to be competitive with our neighbors. And I have reallocation there. We just, we're working on finalizing a contract with a new substitute staffing service, a company that services 3 other districts in Anderson County, one we're excited about. So we'll probably reallocate some of our costs that are currently in our salary and fringe accounts over to a purchase service, since we're planning on having them handle all of them. So should be a net zero, just a reallocation on some of the line items. We do have one additional teaching position at Star Elementary School to accommodate the growth we've seen there, specifically in kindergarten. Had a big boom there, so want to make sure we're ahead of that. And then approximately $225,000 of non-payroll budget increases, and I have those in further detail later on. So, and it's very small here, but this is our current teacher salary schedule on the left side. And on the right side would be our proposed teacher salary schedule. So our current starting pay for a teacher is $49,320, and with a 3% increase, our starting would be $50,800. We started this process looking at the teacher pay to mirror what the state's doing, which is the $1,500. In doing that, we wanted to push it a little bit further and see what we could do, because in comparison, because we always measure what's the rough percentage for the teacher for a dollar amount, and try to relay that over to his support staff, so to help determine what we do for support staff. So in doing that, having a little bit of wiggle room, we played around with 3%, and really it's very similar on the starting pay from a 3% to the $1,500. For example, a $1,500 raise is a $20 difference on that entry-level teacher. But when you look at the percentages, every step on the schedule outside of years 0, 1, 2, and 3 on the bachelor's is better off under 3%. So we feel like we're impacting more teachers with more money by going the 3% route, and we feel like we have the funds to do that. So that's the reason for kind of straying from what the state's proposing, and it allows us to be consistent for all of our employees as well. So that's kind of the reasoning behind that. So I mentioned increasing our support staff's salary schedules to 28 steps. As you can see on that middle column there, we're kind of scattered on where our steps max out for some of our support staff positions. And so we're wanting to get that a little more consistent so that we can kind of ease the communication and understanding throughout the district. But also, in looking at these specific positions and doing a study with the neighboring districts, we found that our entry-level pay for these positions are relatively competitive, but our top ends where we're really falling behind. So adding these steps to the schedule helps us get there, get a little bit closer. By no means would we be leading the pack in any of these, but I think it gets us a lot more competitive. I know one example of custodial salary schedule, that's one we've lagged behind quite a bit. So I think that one is definitely needed, and I think that all of them are really, but that's one specific one that we've run into problems with recently that we feel like can at least help close the gap, or at least approach the gap. So that's sort of the reasoning behind that one.
Question for you
Yes,
on
go
that.
ahead.
Just for instance, let's say secretary, let's just say they were in year 24, 25, but the step stopped at 20. Are we gonna play catch up to get them to?
That's my recommendation,
Steps.
catch them up where they're at. So, and secretary's a position where we're fortunate to have a lot of experienced folks, so that's one in terms of the immediate hit, that is a heavier one because that's where a lot of our experience is. But ultimately, it'll all even out, but that is one we're fortunate to got some experience, so we got some who have been maxed out for several years, so we'd like to catch them up.
And one thing to add to that Matthew alluded to, we have been losing custodians to neighboring districts due to the pay difference. That you always ask that, and our nurses also are thankfully we've got a group of dedicated nurses, but they are cognizant of the differences in the salaries and the scales. So I think this is a good recommendation overall from top to bottom.
All right, so I know we talked a little bit about these budget factors past months and also here in the general fund report here a minute ago. But given our update at the 135th day, we did back down some of these projections, which were already conservative. So our weighted pupil units, we had that as of last month at 4,480. So with our drop in enrollment from the 45th to the 135th day, we felt like dropping that down by about 35 is still a good conservative estimate. So it gives us some room that way if we do drop off some students going into next year, we're still protecting ourselves a little bit by going that route. Our index tax payability number, that number did change from last month. We got our final update from the Department of Revenue, so it was at .00209. And then it got bumped up to 213. So, and of course, the lower that number, the more state support, the bigger the allocation of that state aid to classrooms. So, did go up a little bit, still getting a net positive from that change. And then, of course, the value of the meal, I mentioned that earlier, increasing that by $2,000 per meal, and I'll have that itemized here in a minute. This is the big high-level overview that builds up to that $1.8 million increase for the budget side, just broken down by state, local, and other revenues. Other revenues being, it's just how the funds flow, goes into another fund and then gets transferred into the general fund is really all of that is. And a portion of that state aid to classrooms just gets grouped in that category just simply because of how the state funds it. And then we also have indirect costs that gets captured into that one as well. So the more itemized breakdown of the revenue right there, so our state aid to classrooms number in total is $1,165,000. But I did want to break it down for you as much as I can to show you how each of those factors impacts or helps us, and tried to put those into a vacuum to build up to that amount. So that index of tax paying ability, that decrease gives us an additional 415. The weighted pupil units, our enrollment increase is 275,000 of that. The additional funding that the House put in to fund those teacher raises, $355,000, and then the annualized health insurance, the funding that goes with that is the 120. So all those four pieces add up to that $1,165,000 that gets reflected in the state aid to classrooms. The other numbers are ones that retiring insurance, that's projections based on the State Department of Education gave us that. We discussed the bus driver's salary and the bus driver's workers' comps, a number we've seen coming in a little bit better than what we've had in the past. And then the tier 3, which is at property tax relief that comes from the state sales tax, that's increasing by $160,000. So that's the state funding there. And then on the local side, the $2,000 per meal gets us $389,900. County equalization's one that's come in better than, is coming in above budget in the past, and we project it to continue that rate. So increasing that $75,000, and then the last one is the interest revenue. We've consistently earned well above our interest revenue budget years past, and I think I've been on record saying that's a number I'm hesitant to move because interest rates can move quickly. But still, given the amount we've exceeded that revenue, I think just adding a little bit, that $10,000, we're currently at $40,000, just bumping that up to $50,000. Still very, very conservative. But even in the most down years, we still approach that $50,000 number. So I feel like we can move that a little bit to help us fill those gaps to cover some of our proposed expenditures and still be very conservative. Expenditures side now, moving on to that. And this is the kind of high level of comparison like we're used to seeing on the general fund reports, broken out by salaries, fringe, purchase service, supplies, equipment, other objects, and our outgoing transfers, all just showing you how all that rolls up to that 1.8 million. All right, so I do have these broken down as pretty itemized for you, and I'm not going to read through every single one of them, but I'll highlight a few of them as we go. But kind of look at that $1.8 million roughly broken down between the payroll and non-payroll, how I like to look at it. So 1.6 of the increase of the 1.8 is tied to payroll expenditures, and then the other 225 that I referenced earlier is non-payroll. Talked about a lot of these things, the health insurance increase, step increase, bus driver pay, all that, just quantifying all those things. The teacher pay, 3% is roughly $540,000. The teaching FTE at Star Elementary is an estimate at this point. The support staff's increase in those steps up to 28 costs us about $87,000. 3% for the rest of our staff, $330,000. The last few things there, supplemental pay for our after-school suspension and homebound. Those are, in reviewing some of our extra pay rates, those are the only two things that we currently do not pay at $35 an hour. So putting the money in there to get everything that's after school, after hours, outside of the regular school day at that same consistent rate that we're paying for after school programs and things of that nature. So putting in money there. Substitute pay that I mentioned, increasing that. That's a number that's a moving target right now until we work with nailing down exactly what kind of increases we may look at, but just wanted to be overly conservative on that number. Band supplements, we heard Mr. Roberts mention the great things they're doing over at Crescent. We did a study about surrounding band directors and the pay there, so we felt like we had some catching up to do to get us at least in the neighborhood of what those folks are doing, so making sure that that we're competitive and we can keep our folks we got here. And then the last thing payroll related is related to the AIT budget. We had our budget meeting before spring break. Thankfully, there's nothing getting added to the AIT budget this time, but they do anticipate providing similar teacher raises than what we're looking at doing here for our staff. So we don't have a final number on that, just have an estimate that whatever AIT budget increase we will see will be on the salary and fringe side on whatever increase, the total increase ends up being for those staff. So we'll have that number nailed down a little tighter as we move throughout the budget process. On the non-payroll expenditures, again, I'll highlight a few of them, but I've got there for you the budget name, and then the description or justification for the increase, the current year budget, the proposed budget for next year, and then the change. So I tried to give you as much information as I could fit on this one page for you. One thing on this screen I do want to point out that we have not increased, I don't think since I've been here, is our furniture and paint budget that we allocate for our schools. Currently we have a $70,000 budget, and our staff's done a great job stretching that money, but as you know, things are more expensive now than they were 7 years ago when I was here. So we're wanting to stretch that money further. And also, I think we're approaching needing to paint inside classrooms, and as you break up spaces and painting, that gets more costly as well. So we're wanting to increase that by $30,000, to get us $100,000 annually to going into our schools, for their furniture and their paint. Instructional software one, that's one that I was pleasantly surprised on how we were able to settle out on that one. That's one that I know we've talked about for months now, because I was concerned about that one, but thankfully the State Department has done a lot of support for paying for some softwares that for schools that can use, and have saved us a good bit of money in what they've offered for us and what we're looking at using for next year. So the fact that we're proposing only to increase that budget by less than $7,000, I was very pleased with that. And thankful for our staff and our schools, to being cognizant of the cost of looking at some things, but, so that's one thing that I anticipated being a much larger number several months ago. Continuing on, non-payroll expenditures, let's see what else. Establishing a good recurring budget for our mental health counselor, $10,000. I tell you, $7,500 of that is tied to a software program, that helps store and record all the data tied to the work she does. So, most of that is in a software program. Wanting to add $5,000 to our general fund portion for our summer reading camp. We've had a good attendance at those camps, so wanting to be able to fund a nurse to be on site for those reading camps, just due to the number of kids we have there all at one time. So making sure that we're covered from that end. The SRO budget, I know I brought this up a couple months ago. We have had one increase in the past 5 years, so we definitely knew this was coming. So increasing that by $27,000, and again, that's not a firm number just yet, but we think it's going to settle in that range, to provide increased pay for our officers that are working in our schools. And then the last bigger jump there is for our technology department. They have begun looking at some email security solutions that are quite expensive, but according to our team, they're very much needed. They do a whole lot of email security filtering, and that's about the extent of my knowledge of it. I'm sure Ms. Gray could give you a whole lot more about it, but she tells me it is very much needed, and she begged me to get that in there. So that is a larger than normal jump for technology, but something she feels like in today's climate is very much needed, with what they're dealing on a day-to-day basis. All right, we're on the home stretch.
Quick question if I may,
Yeah,
Mr.
yes,
Chairman.
please.
Well,
So, I've been reading on this, trying to follow some of it, and
Yes.
at a state level,
Yes. Excuse me.
SRO budget, I know at the state level, they'd been bouncing around money just for SROs.
So currently,
I think I know the answer to that, but I just wanted to ask
we
that.
are not a part of this additional money
That's what I
that we're
thought.
talking about. So we are funded one SRO, and this is a net cost of that funding coming through, paying for that SRO. So that's essentially the cost of four of them. So yeah, so we're not getting any additional money, unfortunately.
And just to kind of make sure we put it on the record, when they advertise that they've funded a SRO in every school in the state, they have not done that.
That's correct.
They have basically funded the ones that the district didn't catch up and fund. But our board was very proactive in that, and so that's why we only have one being funded by the state, is you all had done that before the state ever put funding into it.
Any other questions before I move along?
Have a good meeting, but you can finish, and then I'll go over.
Okay, gotcha. All right, this is just the general timeline that we're looking at. I mentioned Senate Finance wrapped up last week. There's nothing going on this week. Next week, the full Senate will discuss the budget, and I'm sure there will be some items in the conference committee. Ideally, in the first week of May, but as we've seen in the past, it typically does not get wrapped up that quickly. But that's wishful thinking, I'd say. But here locally, have our first budget reading May 12th, the public hearing and the second budget reading June 9th here. And then, of course, with our Anderson County Board portion of the budget process, we typically have our budget workshop there in late June with their approval taking place in July. The last thing I want to wrap up with is just make sure you're aware of some legislation out there. I'm sure you're well aware of the live streaming requirement. I think they've talked about this for a couple years now. I think this is the year it's definitely going to go through with the requirement going into effect January 1 of 2026. So we'll keep a close eye on that, just how it affects us here in this setting. House Bill 3645 is about paid parental leave. The way I understand it, got introduced in an effort to extend it to state employees, but what gets offered to state employees also applies to school district employees. So in the paid parental leave bill, it's extending paid parental leave for the mother from 6 weeks to 12 weeks paid leave, and then the spouse gets increased from 2 weeks to 4 weeks. So that's something that would be a direct hit. I do not anticipate any funding to come along with that, like it did not come the first time. But thankfully, this is a budget we feel like we have a $50,000 budget set aside for our current paid parental leave, and that's one that we've come in under budget the past couple years. So I would think we'd be able to handle that within our existing budget, but I guess what we'd lose out is the possibility of a reduction in that budget. So that's something to keep an eye on. And then the other one is a little bit bigger ticket is the H3258 for mobile panic alert systems. Basically, it's a bill to mandate a mobile panic alert system in every single school district in South Carolina. Now, and there is no funding tied to that either. We got a very rough quote from a neighboring the same product that neighboring districts have. And the number we got was an average of $9,500 per site per year. So you're looking about 50 grand for the ongoing cost, and then a one-time fee of $32,000 to cover your setup, implementation, training, and all of that. So you're looking at $80,000 year one, and then 50 after that. And there appears to be no funding tied to that. Now, there may be other solutions out there. That's just the one we knew of and could get a quote from just to estimate that cost, but that's a big ticket that's kind of looming out there that we're definitely gonna keep an eye on. So with that, I'll turn over any questions you have.
Was that Centegix that y'all looked at?
That is,
Okay.
yes.
Have y'all checked any other companies, or is that just the?
That was a number because there was a fiscal impact request sent out to all the finance officers. So in an effort to get an accurate fiscal impact for our district, that was the one I reached out to just because I knew, because Anderson 5 had them. So, and the rep was eager to give us a price. So that's the one we got. So he could say, yeah, he says, so basically $250,000 to cover you for 5 years is what he, so he sold it as you could save by paying all up front for 5 years.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the company, yes.
It has worked well, and it does,
Oh, I'm
geofence everything and show where you are.
I don't doubt that this is a good idea and it can help. It's just a steep cost.
It's very costly. So on the enrollment numbers
Yes.
that you gave, the 2642.
Yes.
Down a little bit,
Yes.
than projected.
Mhm.
Have we looked at how that compares to 5 year or 10 years? All,
I got with me going back to FY '22. This is the highest it's been. I can rattle them off if you like. I mean, so in FY '22, we're at 2556. FY '23, we're at 2599. In FY '24, so last year we were down to 2577, and then we're finishing at 2642. So we're steadily climbing. It feels like. But we just had such a large jump at the 45 day. feels like we're coming down, but we're still in the net positive. And over time, I think I've got it somewhere dating back farther than that, but it's a slow and steady climb.
And also remember, that number does not include K-4.
Okay.
When you're thinking about a number of
Yes.
children in our building,
Starting through
that's
12.
basically 40 less than every elementary has.
Would it sound reasonable if I said there was 123 more students in a 10-year period? Would that number sound reasonable?
Oh, I definitely think so.
123.
At the rates we've seen, I mean, we definitely add, so you're saying like 10 to 12 students a year, I think that's a reasonable expectation.
And how many of those students since 2019 are attending and they're out of district? So their parents aren't working in our district, but they attend out of district.
I don't have that number on any numbers that get delivered to me. Anyone who's a student enrolled in Anderson 3 gets reported to me, so we get that state aid to classroom funding. So now for this year, it's right at $6,000 a student on average. I know it fluctuates based on the weighting and stuff like that, but as far as out of district versus in district, that's nothing that affects me directly, I guess, or it affects the state aid to classrooms directly, if that makes sense.
Does it, you can go ahead.
And I asked Ms. Rice to run that for me from Power School last week, and I think that number was 150. But that includes teachers, children, which there's not a good way to take them out, but my rough estimate is probably 50 to 60 of that 150 are teachers' children, which is definitely, we want teachers' children in our building because that helps us retain our teachers.
Absolutely, I think it's an incentive for, being in the district, getting to bring your children with you. So you'd say 90 are out of district,
I'd say that's a rough guess, yes.
and they don't pay out of district fees.
No, but we get that, because they're in our number, they're in our,
Right.
they help that state aid classroom number.
Yes.
But do other districts get the state aid to classroom money as well as get the out-of-district fees?
Yes, if they're charging it, yes.
Yes.
And then just a couple more things. When will we get the notebook that goes into, like the band supplements that has,
Yes, yeah, I anticipate having that to you ahead of next month's meeting. We still have got a lot of moving pieces with staff, and I'd like to have that as nailed down as much as I can before putting all that in writing, and there's still a ways to go with the Senate. Don't expect a big change, but we always like to get a little bit deeper to make sure we don't have anything unforeseen before we get close to nailing down a final number, because, I mean, all this is moving at this point. This is far from finished, but this is just where we are today. So, but yeah, before next meeting for sure.
And I'll just say, the Senate Finance Committee just passed their numbers on Thursday. And they'll be debating that on the Senate floor. I don't know if this week or next week, but that's another reason for waiting till May, is because they just passed their line item numbers out of the Finance Committee.
One key piece I failed to mention that the Senate put in on their side that would help our employees is, I mentioned last month there was a possible employee increase on the health insurance. The Senate put in funding to the state so that employee increase would not go into effect. So that would help take home pay. And then they use one-time money, non-recurring money for this, but they set aside money to reduce those income tax rates down from 6.8 to 6%. That's a problem for next year for them, but that's another thing that would ultimately help our folks have more take-home pay as well. So those are some key things on the Senate side too that did differ from the House.
Okay. Then anything with the zero that was zero the year before, but we're asking for
Yes.
this year, will we have detailed information on that? For example, the human resource admin budget, like what that entails?
Yes, I mean, that's just with the new position, just predominantly travel, because traveling to recruitment fairs and things like that, and any in-district travel may occur, and then just your typical office supplies. That's really all that makes those up. Let me make sure I'm not missing any others. There are a couple others I know, just much on a smaller scale, the student records budget, establishing one of those for Crescent Guidance, just that online record storage for those student records that get sent off. establishing a good home for those.
The $250,
Is $2,500, yes.
2,500.
Yes, the online record storage has gotten higher recently, and we're definitely exploring solutions, but right now, that's what we're looking at for that.
Have
And-
them scanned or stored?
Scanned and stored. So, yes. And then, the other one that's a new one is the student travel, and we've got students going on to state competitions. We mentioned the student that traveled to Dallas, having a true budget, for those types of things. That's one of those things we've always supported it, always just look for a place to find it, but this is just an effort to establish a home for it that we can point to and help, because we know when those things are happening every year, so having a good home for that is another reason for adding that new budget there.
And then I think it's important that we know if schools are asking for something, I know that like the instructional software.
Right.
Does that include approving everything that they've asked for, or just what y'all have approved? I mean, I'd
That-
like to know what they've asked for and what that includes.
When we sat down with our principals, we asked them, what do you need? What do you need from us? And I think that it's the same ones we discussed, and forgive me if I miss one, iExcel, Reading Horizons, this new program that the state is helping fund, SRP Beacon, is that what it's, is that?
DRC.
DRC, I knew there were some letters. Okay, Beacon, that was one, I know I'm missing another one, and the high school's got a bevy of them too, that Mr. Roberts viewed himself and worked with his staff on, so, work with each individual principal and ask them what they need and doing our best to accommodate that, and that's what's wrapped into that number.
And I can't think, and all our principals are represented in the room, but I can't think of many things the principals ask for that were not able to give instructional software wise. Some of that's come into district budgets too, because our title funds have been decreased. So some of the things they've been using, like Title I funds for, we've actually put into the general fund budget because title funding has gone down.
I'd like to hear that, and I think, y'all do a great job giving us the information. We want to make sure that if things are being denied or not approved, that, we know so that we can look at, is that enough for the instructional software and things such as that. Mental health budget, note taking's $10,000.
That's what the mental health counselors need to be HIPAA and FERPA compliant.
Like therapy notes is $10,000.
Well, it's for the electronic health record.
And then the remainder of that budget is to cover her in-district travel and any training she needs to go to and any office supplies.
So there's other things in there.
Yes,
So we'll get the
yes.
breakdown of all the things within that one too, within
Yes,
each of the budgets, what is being asked for.
Right, yes. But yeah, the bulk of that is that program that we need.
I didn't realize it was that expensive. And then the per pupil school budget breakdowns,
Yes.
will we get on per school instead of just the one?
Yes, I can do that for you. That's not a problem. I can definitely include that in that packet to show you each individual school's allocation. That's right.
This is the last thing I promise for right now.
No,
And I
no,
know
you're
you
good.
have the hardest of, giving us all this information. The Board of Trustees, there was a line item for that, for travel. And could we see how that was spent this
Mm-hmm.
current year? Because I'm thinking, I had no idea that number was where it is.
That total number, so the budget that I give you is the total budget, and then the description I had, let me see if I can go back. Come on. Oh,
$2,000.
So that is, like I mentioned, increased membership, cost of membership fees and travel. That is the justification for the $2,000. That is not the entirety of the whole budget.
Okay, there's other things within there.
Yes, we got, the membership to SCASA is one, I mean, your travel. Trying to think what else we have in there. There are other things wrapped in there, and I can have a more itemized line in there, yeah, fees and stuff like that. But yeah, so that description there is kind of the justification for the increase to identify what that change is for. It's not that description doesn't cover the entirety of what that budget is used for.
I understand that. I'm not so much worried about the change. I think it's just the 24-25 budget. I had no idea of $35,000 for Board of Trustees. I just didn't realize it was that
And I can easily get
much.
that.
It was just like
itemized for you.
sticker shock just a little bit when I seen it.
But some of that is, there's fees to be part of the School Boards Association and things like that. Just like, if you look at my budget, it might be a good time just for me to make sure that's understood too. When it asks for $1,000 increase for travel, my budget, the bulk of it is spent like, when we get rings for our skeet shooting champions, that comes out of my budget. State championship rings come out of my budget. Some of the travel our kids do, like to Texas and to the Vex Robotics and things like that, comes out of my budget until we run out of money in my budget. And then just tell Matthew to find it somewhere. So, but
And some of these, I'd say travel increase, it's partially to accommodate our increase in the IRS approved reimbursement rate, that we voted on, a few months ago, just to accommodate that increase and provide you a sufficient budget, to operate under.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm clear. I don't recall questioning your budget.
no,
was
I
looking
just,
at
it was
the school
kind,
board.
it's kind of similar because you look at that increase going up. I just,
No.
Wanna
but
make
just
sure that-
anything that's zero before, I think we need to know what's within there. I just want
Mm-hmm.
to make sure we're going to get that information to make an informed decision.
Yes, happy to do that.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, sir.
So, a couple questions, just, and this might be directed at Kathy also, but I'm just not sure. So I know we've been trying to follow up and push real hard on the infrastructure bank. I haven't found a lot of info on that. I talked with Scott Price today at the School Board Association, and he didn't either. Any info on that, as far as, will that impact budget season this time? Which I don't foresee that being an issue there, but.
Yeah, I haven't seen that come up anywhere on the House or Senate side. I don't anticipate that coming through. It hadn't got any traction. Part of the Senate side is kind of unusual, is that the Senate did not have any earmarks in their budget, which typically
I
is a
read
point
that. I saw that.
point of contention
Yep.
usually when it comes to the governor getting involved. So it looks like they put all of their eggs in that income tax basket, trying to get that reduced. So it looks like it kind of stopped and ended with the Department of Education's request for that infrastructure bank.
I kind of felt that way. That's what I'd read, and that's what I kind of thought was going on. So the next question is, we had talked about our fund balance and where we stood and what our goal and what we had been trying to achieve over the last several years.
Right.
And how the state had requested everybody's fund balance district-wide, and we felt like that might be an issue. Has that come up this time during this budget cycle so far?
I haven't heard any comments being made, at least like how it's been to our detriment in the past. And we are still reporting that monthly, and it's my understanding they are looking at it. So it's a possibility that could have been used against us in advocating for that infrastructure bank. But I haven't heard anything at the legislative level that kind of being used against us. I mean, for all I know, though, it could be part of this mobile panic alert systems. That might be something they're pulling from.
but, to Trip, the only time I've heard it come up, because I watch a lot of these committee meetings while I'm doing other stuff at my desk, is like when the bill about live streaming the board meetings came up, and somebody made the point in the committee debate that there was no money for it. And that's when one of the House or Senate members, I can't remember which one, said, well, we're giving them so much per student. And they've got a lot of flexibility with their money, so that's kind of their basis for saying, well, we don't need to earmark money. Earmark's a bad word. We don't need to budget money for these panic systems or for live streaming board meetings because we're giving you money for technology and we're giving you money for safety. So that's kind of an indirect way. I think they're hitting at some of the monies that we do have and our fund balance being what they are, because even though they're not budgeting, they're saying, you've got funds to do it because we've given you money and a lot of flexibility with it. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and I think, which we talked about, we felt like some of the healthier school districts, we've tried to be fiscally conservative all these years. We feel like we're healthy. We feel like we do a good job with our money, and and then all of a sudden when they start asking for it, it makes you wonder at what angle they're looking at that. So that's the only reason why I bring that up. And I'm probably gonna continue to ask about that
Yep.
through the budget process. Just try to make sure we stay on top of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and again, that's kind of what drove our, initiative to that 25% fund balance, no more than that in general fund, being able to move that, looking at moving that at the end of each fiscal year.
Yes.
To make sure that that's not being used against us. for
Correct.
sure, But still protecting ourselves.
Is this gonna be a zero tax increase?
No tax increase. Should have let off with that. No tax increase. I think we've seen plenty of growth to accommodate what we need, here in the district
Just let
on
off
the
with
property
that.
tax side. So, and I still feel like that $2,000 increase per meal is still pretty conservative. Thankfully, it's held a little bit above that, but still like to be conservative.
I knew you said start with, and I was just wanting to make sure.
Yeah,
Just
thank you for clarifying that.
worth clarifying, the second year that the budget hasn't asked for a millage increase.
Yes. Sorry. Any other questions?
I think we're good.
Thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Dr. Nixon, federal program?
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it, Mr. Chairman. It is that time of year, we're talking about budget, and also that time of year that we have to visit federal programs and state monitoring. About $1.3 million of our budget comes from federal dollars, and along with those federal dollars comes a lot of requirements that we have to adhere to receive the money and to continue to receive the money. So each year, we have to turn in some information to the State Department in regards to federal programming, but every 3 to 5 years, we have to have a monitoring visit, and then every 5 years, we have to have a consolidated monitoring visit, which ties to accreditation. Not the Cogni accreditation that we have to do, but this is solely related to state accreditation. So, closeout letter, we got an all clear. That's a part of the State Board of Education 43-300 that requires that by state law. All clear, no issues of non-compliance. You can see the links there, the hyperlinks there take you to the actual letter. And then for the actual consolidated monitoring for the 5-year accreditation, we did receive our accreditation and got an all clear on that as well. The link down below will take you to the federal program presentation that was done last Thursday. We're required by law in the fall and the spring to have those meetings and provide for community input, and also to have all of our stakeholders. All 5 schools were represented, and we had representation from the community and representation from the board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for participating in that meeting. So really good results from our state monitoring, and had an excellent federal programs planning committee meeting last Thursday. And the meeting in its entirety will be posted on the district's webpage per law and regulations for everyone to be able to take advantage of, and the board will get a copy of that meeting in its entirety at the May meeting. Summer projects. Now, Matthew mentioned meeting with all the principals and getting their input for their budgets and programmatic needs. We also do walkthroughs with at school administration at each location, and we talk about their needs specific to their schools, and we try to satisfy those needs throughout the year. But then we also know that some projects are only able to be done during the summertime when the buildings are actually empty. So I'm not going to read each slide to you and go over them one by one for the bullets that are there. We're going to hit some of the high points. And for point of reference, everything that's in red is covered by a safety and security grant that was awarded to Anderson School District 3 by the State Department. So we'll revisit that on the last slide. That'll be the last portion that we'll discuss. Matthew mentioned painting budget, and we always try to tackle multiple schools each summer. So we're going to be painting the interior hallways at Flat Rock Elementary School. And the red, due to the grant money, we'll be doing a new intercom system. Bogan intercom systems are going to be installed in all 5 locations, and that gives us a lot of interoperability, and also gives us, the schools that already have them can tell you that working with those intercom systems and being able to announce from the the bus rider line or other locations throughout the building gives a lot more flexibility and functionality than your typical trying to relay through a radio system and for somebody else to make the announcement. It would also give our schools the ability that, let's say in the event that all schools need to be placed on lockdown, Ms. Hip from her office through the app could basically make an intercom announcement to all the schools in Anderson School District 3 at the same time in live time, so real time. So having all the systems also be the same type systems helps out with maintenance, helps out with purchasing parts. We can keep things on hand. An intercom system is required by law to be functioning during the time that the building is occupied. Either that or you have to have radio service and or fire watches, or there's a lot of other alternatives when the intercom systems go down. So having a uniform system that we can have parts for to be able to fix it as efficiently and quickly as possible is a great resource for us to have. Iva Elementary, again, they're the other school that's receiving the intercom system. They have an antiquated intercom system. We've been experiencing problems with it throughout the year, and we're excited to get that caught back up. The other thing from the state grant was replacing interior classroom doors, cafeteria doors, and external doors beside the cafeteria. The one that's in blue was something that has came up most recently. The sewer line down 184, intrusion of roots and debris inside those old inside that old sewer line. We own the line all the way down the side of 184, underneath the road from Iva Elementary School, and then all the way down the side of 184 down to past the new apartment complex. We keep having to pump it, and we're spending a lot of money on clearing that line. We cambered it last week. We need to replace at least 2 sections from manhole to manhole, and we'll have those budgeted information for you by the May meeting and our recommendation after we look at all the camera results from where that line got cambered. But something that has to receive attention this summer for the school to be used. That project would also require DOT to shut down that road during the time it's being done, so summer's really the only time we're just going to have to limp along until we can get to summer so we can shut down that road, because it would be very difficult operationally to provide bus service to that road with it shut down. Star Elementary School, the signage out front, Miss Hatcher was just adamant it's going to make the front of her school look much, much better to have that powder coated. So she's in the process of picking the sign right now. Painting of 23 classrooms and their cafeteria. I updated that slide, and it obviously didn't pick up the update. When the budget numbers come in, our goal is to also paint the gym as well. So we will be painting classrooms, cafeteria, and the gym based on the budget numbers that come in. Exterior cameras are always something that we talk about during these walkthroughs about blind spots, and as things come up throughout the year. Our principals have done an excellent job of strategically placing their cameras throughout their schools, but this was one area at the exterior door, loading dock, and rear entrance. And I think for those of you that participated in the security walkthroughs, that was one of the issues in one of the locations. Someone said it would be great to have a camera up there as well during that walkthrough, so we're going to satisfy that during the summer. The adult education building around back, we're going to underpin that building, and then again, grant money is going to replace all the interior doors in the front hallway. And right now, external door going to the playground with more doors on the horizon to be done there. Star Iva Middle School, that's not the list in its entirety. We did meet with administration from that school this past week. Scheduling was an issue. And all the items that are there on that list, in addition to some drainage issues that we have at Car Rider Line and in their Car Rider loops, and painting some of the parking spaces and strategic painting out there in their Car Rider loop that's needed for them to be able to do car dismissal safely and efficiently. And here's the big ticket stuff that we're doing this summer. Mentioned to you multiple times the switchgear project. Changing out that switchgear is going to be a very, very important project. That switchgear feeds the oldest part of the building as well as the cafeteria. If the switchgear were to go out, there's no parts available to fix the switchgear, and that school would not be functioning at all. We could not have school in that building if that switchgear were to go out. And it's original to the construction, so 70 years old. Time to get new. Roof replacement. You can see the roof there. That's the front section of roofing closest to 81. That project came in much lower than we anticipated, so we're very excited to be able to get that roof replacement there on that front hallway. A lot of flooring to be done inside the school. We've been working diligently for the last 6 or 7 years trying to get carpet out of our schools. Carpet's difficult to maintain, it's difficult to clean, a lot of environmental and medical hazards from having carpet in the building, so that's the last bit of carpet in that building, and we hope that budgets will suffice that we can get that taken care of this summer. And then replace all the interior doors in the old building. Transportation, finally, with us moving transportation down here and them occupying that space, the increases in traffic on a carpeted area is starting to show. So we're gonna try to replace that with similar LVT. If you remember the pictures that I showed you from the district office renovation down there for their space, that will be another project that we'll try to tackle this summer. Shot past it, excuse me. The grant, this was awarded $510,000. This was a competitive grant that not all the districts in South Carolina decided to even apply for. Folks from the Safety and School Security Office, as well as Wayne Freeman, have said multiple times, there's no greater thing that districts can do than provide physical barriers. In our buildings, especially some of the older parts of our buildings, we still have hollow core doors that students are having classes behind. So this grant, two things, we felt like communication for aging intercom systems. We gotta communicate with teachers in the event of an emergency. So those intercom systems, those Bogan's intercom systems at those two schools will be satisfied with this grant, as well as interior and exterior doors. We have the S2 system that shows anytime a door is ajar or doesn't completely close, we get notification. We did security walkthroughs and had principal recommendation on exterior doors that they had issues with that wouldn't latch entirely. Aging doors, aging buildings, settling buildings, there's no way to keep maintaining those doors. At some point in time, you have to replace them. So this grant, this grant's gonna take care of a lot of issues we have with those hollow core doors, that there's some people in this room that if they really put their shoulder into it, could breach a hollow core door in seconds. And if you had some type of tool, an axe or anything like that, you could definitely gain access to our kids. Solid core doors provide fire resistance, they will provide blast resistance, and absolutely provide more time for the SRO to get down there and dispatch somebody in the event that we were to have somebody get into our buildings. Plus, it's gonna look a whole lot better. So, anybody have any questions for me?
Say the name of the intercom again. What are you saying?
Bogan, B-O-G-E-N.
Okay, is that the name? That's the
Name brand.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question. Dr. Nixon, I think those are great things, the physical barriers. Are there certain things that are not able to be funded by this grant? For example, a weapons detection system, is that something that you could use this grant money toward?
We could. They discourage us to use anything that has recurring annual cost.
Okay.
But yes, ma'am, weapons detection systems could be utilized in that grant. Whether or not it's funded or not, we get the opportunity to pick 3 priorities, and it could be applied for, yes, sir.
Now, is there a monthly fee that comes with those type systems that she's referring to?
No,
In other words, once we put it into place, they don't have any kind of monitoring or anything we have to pay for?
it depends. The ones that we looked at do not. Now, there is replacement cost because they have a finite amount of life to them. They're not a forever purchase, so, folks that have the mobile systems that I think they brought to a board meeting and you guys looked at, they say average 5 to 7 years, and you have to replace them.
It's a little pricey too, for.
The question that's been, and I'll delve even deeper into it, the question that's been involved with a lot of districts for the purchasing of weapons detection systems. That's a face value cost of purchasing the actual devices, but then the operational cost of being able to man those devices and provide resources and personnel there on a daily, but they're no good if you don't have someone there that can handle it. So, I think therein lies the hiccup with trying to provide those, is finding operational money to put into a finite budget to be able to have someone there to man.
On the doors, how much per door will it cost to replace them?
Unfortunately, I would
About
love to.
800?
No, sir, it's much more costly than that, and the reason being is our doors have to be specially made and specifically ordered for the oldest parts of our building, because none of the doors are consistent. If you buy a 3.0 door it might fit these two rooms, and then it won't fit the next two rooms due to settling and the frames going into place. So average cost is around $2,500 per door, because some of those have to be taken completely out of the frame, and some of them can be retrofitted with new hardware and new hinges and put back in. But all of those items, especially solid core doors with any kind of view pane through it, whether it's the 8-inch at the top or a sideline 3-inch view pane on the side, those costs have skyrocketed in the last 5 years.
Do you have any idea how many doors we got?
Yes, sir, I do. Let me look at my notes. Right now, we're at 147 interior doors and 30 exterior doors. And the 30 exterior doors, I'll give you an example. The one going out to car riders at Star Elementary School, the first estimate on that one was $46,000 due to the size of the door.
Are they all in the three oldest schools?
Sir?
Are they all in the three?
All of the schools are slated to receive replacements with the exception of Flat Rock.
Okay, I didn't know if Ivor was
Yes, sir.
being built
Iva's-
later in years.
No, sir. Iva still has some hollow core doors that are there. So we're replacing those as well. By the time we get to the May board meeting, we should have all of our bids in and be able to give you a list of all of those items for summer projects and what we're going to be able to accomplish based on the budgets that we have, okay?
It would take care of all the doors that need to be replaced within the district, all schools,
Yes, sir.
elementary, middle, and high.
Yes, ma'am.
Gracious. So you coming on that, don't you, Larry? Anybody else got anything for Dr. Nixon?
All right, thank you.
Roll. Thank you. Oh, you wanna go ahead with this?
Okay, now, we moved up the, what is the administrative rule about student absences and excuses. Just to remind you of the background of this, the county board asked us to make sure we were consistent across the county so that when students are brought to them with attendance problems, the judges had talked about us having accepting different numbers of parent notes. So our administrative rule allowed us to accept 6, but countywide, that number they passed a policy for was 5. And so that started the conversation about this administrative rule. And when I sent it to committee, Ms. Arnold and I especially had some conversations about just doing some things to streamline that administrative rule to make it flow better and also to make sure there's no hiccups in it. And so what she and I did, primarily she, is worked on deleting a few parts of it and this changing the wording some so that I think along with changing that number from 6 to 5, things read better and also make us more without anything questionable from the law. Now, with this, quite often, and before I was a superintendent in the district office, I had a high school mindset. So this doesn't change anything about getting credits or anything like that. This is just, I saw the high school minds over there going, this doesn't change anything about getting credits. It's just really when you get to that exceeding 5 parent notes and possibly being turned over to the county board attendance intervention, what that looks like. And so I gave each of you a copy of marked up policy, and then also the one without the highlights on it is really where I think I took out the things Ms. Arnold and I talked about, but I'll let her speak to it as she would like to now.
Thank you, Ms. Hipp. We looked at just fine tuning it so that, it covers everything. It's, explains it to parents, but the schools aren't locked in to not being able to approve principal approved absences. On the first page, everything, I think y'all have a copy of the document, everything we felt like needed to be kept. On the second page, under the referrals and judicial intervention, it was just our recommendation that most of this be removed. We recommended leaving the second paragraph, but change the wording from referral of the student to family court to referral of the student to the Board of Education, because our school district is unique in the fact that we do have Board of Education, as the other districts do not have that. So we want to make sure that was clear. Remove the label referrals and judicial intervention and have the second paragraph as just a continuation from page 1 of the intervention portion. If anything is included regarding the judicial process, we wanted to make sure that we were very cautious about how this is worded because, again, our county is unique. the schools and the districts just making the referral to the county board, and then the county board, they handle any type of judiciary procedure. So I think, you know, in the prior administrative rule, it says that we will, follow through with judicial review or something to that effect. And we want to make sure that all we're doing is referring, and then they pick it up from there, because they have the rights to be able to do some things that we don't as a school board and as a district. And then on the third page, the highlighted section, it kind of locks the district into only allowing a medical or a dental excuse after 5 days. And there may be times when a principal needs to be able to approve something for, you know, unforeseen situations. So we didn't want to put that in there and have to be held to that. We want our, you know, principals to be able to have the autonomy to do that as they see fit. So it was just a good time to be able to clean that up, since we were reviewing it and changing the number of days.
So,
We talked about the motion.
one thing we talked about with this, and looking back at board policy, administrative rules, they don't follow the same progression of board policy changes that have to have a first reading and a second reading. And so what we like to propose, because administrative rules actually can be completed by myself and the committee and principals as we need. So if you're okay, unless it's an administrative rule that's strongly tied to a law, we'd like to just follow the procedure that we discuss it with the board, and if you're okay with the changes, that we just make the changes per the discussion and the committee recommendation.
That is fine with me. How about the rest of
So with that, we will make those changes in the administrative rule and carry forward, and won't have to bring that to you again,
you? Sounds good.
okay? So then that does take us to the policy that we need to do the second reading on and have action on.
You got it, Ms. Hall?
Do it, just make a motion for policy JKA, corporal punishment. Just make a recommendation, policy JKA, restraint, seclusion, and intentional physical contact, for the second reading of that.
You know, I'll take it as a form of a motion.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, we need a second. Have a second. Any further discussion on this? Hear none, ask for a vote. 5-0.
Okay, and then one other action item, our schools have done a great job with the selections of our math textbooks, and so we're bringing these to the board for formal approval. This will go into, I think, the new math standards and the new instructional materials for next year. So these are recommended by Dr. Laura Beth Smith chairs that committee and works with our schools to get that recommendation. So the recommendation is coming from those school-wide committees.
We're voting on all of them at once.
I would like to do them as a group unless you would
Okay, yeah,
need
that's
to
fine.
discuss any of them.
Wanted to
Yeah,
make-
so
Make a
thank you for
motion.
clarification, yes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the administrative recommendation for, new textbooks.
Second.
Have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, 5-0. Executive session?
Yes.
All right. We need a motion to enter into executive session for personnel and contractual matters.
Make a motion, enter into executive session.
Second.
All in favor? 5-0. Thank y'all for coming. Appreciate the good work.
Thank y'all.
Makes me think I'm stepping on your toe every time.
Bye. Have a good night.